Hey guys, Victor here, and today we're going to be doing another discussion video with today's topic being how to beat Floowandereeze. Because let's face it, ever since Kashtira got hit, Floowandereeze has pretty much become the premier deck to abuse cards such as Dimension Shifter or just Floodgate you in general, and it honestly is like a really solid matchup against one of the top decks being Unchained. So you're definitely going to be seeing this a lot more like prevalent throughout the events, especially like at a local level or even a regional level, just because it's super easy to play, super cheap to obtain, and just things of that nature. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the video. Now, before we can get into how to best beat the deck, we're going to have to talk about its basic generic combo because this deck only has one combo, and they're going to try to do this pretty much as possible. Otherwise, they're going to lose the game, obviously. And that pretty much stems from the fact that Floowandereeze as a deck is incredibly simple to play, as previously mentioned, so there isn't really much variations with the type of plays that they can actually make. But in essence, the basic play goes with normal summon Rabina, effect, add Eglin, then you normal summon the Eglin, whose effect will then proceed to activate, which in turn will grab you M-Pen. You tribute both for M-Pen. M-Pen's effect Chainlink 1, one of your birds Chainlink 2. It doesn't really matter which, but I guess technically, Eglin would be better. It really depends on what your hand looks like. But whichever one, you just have to add one because you want to still be able to chain block during your opponent's turn. And then with the M-Pen's effect, you're going to add Dreaming Town to your hand. Then you're going to set Dreaming Town, and this will allow you to play during your opponent's turn and just allow you to repeat the process again, right? Because during the main phase, you just activate Dreaming Town, normal summon whichever one you added, normal summon it, Chainlink 1, then you chain block with the one that's currently banished, and then you just repeat the process. So pretty straightforward, really easy stuff. Sometimes you'll have some like slight variations depending on if they can get their field spell or their quick play, but for the most part, this is what you're going to be seeing every single time. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about how to actually address these issues and how to easily beat this deck. Now, when it comes to playing against Floowandereeze, let's face it, at some point in the game, you're going to get hit by a Floodgate. Whether it's Dimension Shifter or something like Harpy's Featherstorm, it will happen. So you might as well Floodgate them back to teach them a lesson, right? And these two cards are probably some of the best to be able to do it. But let's focus on There Can Be Only One first. So every single monster in Floowandereeze is a winged beast. That means that if you're able to flip There Can Be Only One, if you're going first especially, you pretty much just auto-win the game right then and there because your opponent's not going to be able to do anything. But even going second, There Can Be Only One has like a lot of uses, for example. Because all you have to really do when you're going second is fight through one Apex Avian, and the moment you bait that effect out, you're going to be able to flip cards such as There Can Be Only One in order to prevent your opponent and pretty much force them to sit on something basically that's just M-Pen a lot of the time. And having to deal with just one M-Pen and not have to deal with the shenanigans that their field spell or their trap allows them to play with is honestly just really huge in helping you buy enough time to gather enough resources to be able to finish this thing, or to be able to finish this game off pretty quickly. And then for the second one, we have Skill Drain. Probably not as generic, but still really useful because all these effects activate on the field. So if you're able to get the Skill Drain on the field, you've basically just won the game straight up. However, they do have a little bit more counterplay to this card just because they do play sometimes cards such as Book of Moon, which can flip the monster face down and allow the Skill Drain to resolve. And then they also have their Quick Play card that allows them to banish a card for cost. So just be aware that while Skill Drain is really good, it's not honestly as effective as something like There Can Be Only One. Now, with that out of the way, let's just jump into the next topic. Now, for this next portion, I just want to talk about, like generic good cards that you can side up for this matchup. And let's start with Book of Eclipse first. So Book of Eclipse honestly isn't the greatest just because they will have Apex Avian, so they can negate it. But since you're going to be forcing the Apex Avian to negate, it's still pretty valid, one-for-one removal. But if they don't have the Apex Avian, this is a fantastic method to be able to put their Floowandereeze and M-Pen's face down, and then thus allowing you to activate your monster's effects while they're in attack position if they've been special summoned. But it's not the greatest. It's just something you can do. Honestly, probably just regular Book of Moon would be better in a lot of situations because the fact of the matter is they will have their Apex Avian on the field a lot of the time. So just keep that in mind. The main stars, though, are easily the back row removal, whether it's Twin Twisters or Cosmic Cyclone. They both have a lot of really solid uses. And that's because of the fact that their trap, Dreaming Town, can only be activated during the main phase. So during your standby phase or your draw phase, if you have the Twin Twister, you can just straight up shotgun them and try to hit the back row out of the backfield. And if you do manage to hit like the Dreaming Town, they're not going to be able to activate it, which means that they won't be able to play unless they have the map. But typically you're going to for sure hit the map and like one other back row card, and this deck doesn't really play all that much back row. So the chances of you hitting the Dreaming Town are honestly really solid. And if you decide to play Twin Twisters over Cosmic, that means you get to hit 2 cards. But the benefit of playing Cosmic is that you're able to banish the Dreaming Town, I guess. I mean, it's not like the greatest benefit in the world, but making sure that it doesn't hit the grave and they have like to, I guess they can get it back with like Toucan, but it's honestly fine because you're removing the threat of you getting hit by like a Book of Moon type effect if they're still able to get like a level 7 monster onto the field. So, you know, there's just a lot of different things that you can consider, but they're all really solid in their own rights. And with that, we can now move on to the final portion of the video. Now, the final part that I want to talk about for this video is the potential hand traps that you can use, as there are a lot of hand traps that you can choose from, but only some are like super effective against these deck, and I feel like these are probably the 3 best that you can choose from. So first off, we have Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Whether it's Urbina or Eglin, they add from deck before they normal summon again, and even Empen, for example, also adds. So typically what you want to Ash is the very first monster just to try and get their engine to stop entirely. You don't really care about cards such as like Pot of Extravagance or Pot of Prosperity. You'd much rather save the Ash for when you know they're going to normal summon a monster. Obviously, sometimes it's not as effective because they are going to be able to chain block very easily, especially if they're able to draw the map, but you know, that's just one of the risks that you have to take. But Ash Blossom is still a phenomenal card that you can use against the Floowandereeze strategy. Then we're going to have Infinite Impermanence. This is basically a better Veiler in this matchup because while Veiler is solid, if you get hit by Dimension Shifter at any point, Veiler just becomes immediately useless, as opposed to Imperm, which you can pretty much use whenever you want. Much like Ash, while it is very good in this matchup, it also has some weaknesses, being the fact that if they're able to draw, for example, their quick play spell, they can just dodge the Imperm, much like they would be dodging Skill Drain, and still get their effects off, and then you've basically just -1 yourself for no reason. So you gotta be like a little bit careful, but a lot of the times, if you just Imperm their first monster, you can just straight up win the game. And unlike Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, this card cannot be chain blocked, so, you know, it's a lot more effective, I guess, a lot more often. And now the final card that I want to talk about, and it's my personal favorite in this matchup, is Artifact Lancia. So this card is a hand trap, but it's also a floodgate. And what you want to do with Artifact Lancia is pretty much just drop it immediately during the draw phase, you know, so that your opponent isn't able to triple Tactics Talent you or anything like that. And then by dropping it in draw phase, you accomplish a couple of things. So first off, by using this in draw phase, your opponent is not going to be able to use any type of pot cards besides Pot of Duality. So they cannot use their Extravagances and they cannot use their Prosperities because they just cannot banish from the extra deck. So, you know, just being able to cut off that consistency is huge. And then in addition to that, if by some chance, you know, they draw into their quick play spell or their field spell later on in the turn, those cards are also unable to be used because they cannot banish for their quick play. Now, if they have the quick play, they can just chain to Lancia and try to search something, but it's not always going to happen. It's more like a preventative thing. And then if they have the map, they just straight up cannot use it. So they're not going to be able to get their resources from deck because they're not able to banish. And now the final thing that Artifact Lancia accomplishes is that all the monsters that they use to tribute summon for their M-Pen, they go to the graveyard instead of going to the banish zone. And this is honestly really huge for a grind game or resource management standpoint, because by putting the Floowandereeze, typically you're going to be putting Eglin and Rabina in there. Sometimes you're going to be putting in Toucan too, but that's honestly whatever. And you also cut off street access because they're not going to be able to banish. So just like that, you've pretty much effectively answered 3 of the 4 cards immediately just through Lancia, and then you put them in the graveyard, and then they're not going to be able to have to get them back pretty much at all. So they're basically just going to be stuck there, and a lot of the times they can just straight up win the game because they're not going to be able to have a follow-up grind game for turn 2. And with that, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any other suggestions for types of content that you want to see in this type of fashion, just let me know down below. I'd be happy to try and help you guys out. So with that, I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!